Pranab Mukherjee, 58, was born in Bharati, Birbhum district near Shantiniketan, where Rabindranath Tagore set up his university. He gave up academics to join politics when he resigned his professor's job to become a member of the Bangla Congress, a splinter group of the Indian National Congress. Within 2 years, he was in the Rajya Sabha and soon joined the Congress. He has held many ministries since 1973 and has always been a key figure in formulating the nation's economic policies. How does he reconcile his role as a planner with the job of Commerce Minister, ushering in a new era of liberalization? Can planning and a free market go hand in hand? Let's ask him, let's find out.
Born in Merathi, Kirnahar in West Bengal's Birbhum district, Pranab Mukherjee studied in the local Kirnahar school and then at the Vidyasagar College, Suri, before entering the Calcutta University. Once his academic pursuits were over, he took up a teaching assignment and for a while edited 2 Bengali weeklies, Desher Dak and Panchayat of Polli Samaj. He entered politics as a member of Ajoy Mukherjee's splinter party, Bangla Congress, but soon migrated to the Congress itself and entered the Rajya Sabha. Since then, he has held some of the most important portfolios in the Union Cabinet, despite not winning a single election, despite the fact that he has very little grassroots support as such and has to hunt around for a safe nomination each time.
You've been rated one of the top 5 finance ministers in the world by Euromoney in 1984. And it's surprising that you have never been elected by the people of India, but that you were part of a government that was elected by the people of India every time.
No, it is not surprising. Sometimes people do not have that type of electoral support. And
maybe you lack electoral savvy.
No, what I feel that the constituencies which I choose, unfortunately Congress is very weak there.
Why is that?
Because from 1950, after 1962, Congress did never win that seat. All along, left movement is strong there, and that has a historical reason, because that is one of the area where the leftist leaders were also part of the freedom movement, and they built up a left culture which is still continuing.
But as finance minister, you could have nurtured that constituency. You could have set up plants there, factories there. You could have provided jobs there.
I do not look at the things from that point of view. I consider when I become a minister of the government of India, my job is to develop each and every part of the country, and I do not want to be minister in respect of a particular constituency. And in my not so long ministerial career, I did never indulge in giving any special favor to any particular area or to build up any constituency. I do not like that.
Most of your colleagues do it in the government.
I have no comment on that.
Why has the Congress organization in Bengal come to such a sorry pass today?
Unfortunately, large number of our cadets are coming from middle class. Whereas in rural Bengal, though it is not very prominent, but some sort of class conflict between the middle class and the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, landless minorities are going on, and they are in majority. Our too much identification with the middle class have eroded our base in the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and landless minorities. For example, you will find that we have some very prominent Muslim leaders. They can get themselves elected, but they cannot bring the Muslim votes in favor of their other Congress candidates.
But your party is also polarized there between different leaders.
To some extent it is true, but it does not affect electoral politics to that extent, because you have noticed that the percentage of votes scored by Congress has not gone down substantially, except in the last election. Unfortunately, BJP has made a dent there.
How is that? Why?
They have made a dent. They are to some extent this emotional appeal has touched them. Secondly, one point we should not forget, Bengal had a germ of the communal politics, because in the first election it is not the left who gave tough fight to Congress. In the first election, both Jansangh and Hindu Mahasabha contested Congress seriously in certain areas, and Jansanghh, Hindu Mahasabha taken together got as many as 4 Lok Sabha seats, including Dr. Syama Prasad Mukherjee, while the Undivided Communist Party got 5 seats. But after that, particularly with the death of Dr. Syama Prasad and N.C. Chatterjee coming out of the Hindu Mahasabha politics, the communal parties, they lost their influence. But recently they have raised their heads. To some extent they have eroded our vote bank, and to some extent they have eroded the vote bank of left also. But the by-elections which took place after the 91 general elections, their performance has been bad.
Do you see any point of time when the Congress can make a comeback in Bengal's assembly?
Congress will come back. Congress will come back in the next election. I have no doubt.
Pranab Mukherjee has been party treasurer and for many years a member of the working committee of the Congress and the Central Parliamentary Board. He was also deputy leader of the party in the Rajya Sabha for 5 years and represented India on the board of governors of the IMF, the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. He has led Indian delegations to some of the most important international conferences. He joined the Union Ministry in 1973 as Deputy Minister for Industrial Development. Since then, he has held many ministerial jobs in the Ministries of Shipping and Transport, Finance, Revenue and Banking, Commerce, Steel and Mines. He has also been one of the key people in the Congress responsible for formulating economic policy. He was, in fact, chairman of Group 24 as well as chairman of the Economic Advisory Cell of the AICC. His interest in economics and politics has spawned 7 books. 2 of them, Beyond Survival and Off the Track, drew considerable interest because they were written during his years of political isolation when he was expelled from the Congress ostensibly for an interview he gave. But the truth was different. The reigning coterie in the Congress wanted his scalp in any case. They saw him as the man who knew too much and spread rumors that he had staked his claim to the Prime Minister's job when Indira Gandhi was assassinated.
It was never my intention to project myself as a successor of Mrs. Gandhi. But still somebody went on hammering on that ideas. And I think you know the reasons. The reason which was, of course, I didn't get any reason from the official source. It was simply a letter communicating the decision that I have been expelled from the party for 6 years. But I was told the interview which I gave to you in Illustrated Weekly, some part of that interview was pointed out as
The ostensible reason.
Anti-party utterances, and that was the ostensible reason.
Why did you migrate back to the Congress?
Because when I was expelled from Congress, the point I raised and protested that there is no reason to expel me from the party, and I would like to come back to the party. Therefore, when the opportunity came, I came back.
Why did you discard the world of academics for politics?
You may call it some sort of accident, though I was not averse to politics because I was born in a political family. My father was a freedom fighter, and even in the post-independent era, he was an important Congress leader in the state of West Bengal. So I had the opportunity of watching very closely how a political activist functions, and obviously it tempted me, though initially I was not very eager to join politics, and I joined politics sometimes in mid-60s.
As a member of the Bangla Congress?
Yes, when Ajay Babu came out of Congress and established his own organization, Bangla Congress, I joined Ajay Babu.
Why did you join him? What were the ideological compulsions for joining a group that had broken away from the Congress?
There were 2 reasons. One reason was that the way Ajay Babu was removed from the Congress, I did not like it. Secondly, at that point of time, we thought that Congress must be reformed, which were done later on by Mrs. Indira Gandhi in the national scale. Ajay Babu initiated that measures in Bengal in a limited way. Third reason, of course, was our close contact with Ajay Babu. My father was a very close colleague of Ajay Mukherjee, and At that point of time, he practically retired from politics and he didn't like to leave Congress. So Ajay Babu suggested that let me join his party, and I joined him.
What are your earliest memories of Bengal?
You know, when Bengal famine took place, then I was about 5-6 years old. So concept of food security and poverty alleviation has some sort of obsession with me. I remember, I think then I was 5 years or 6 years old, it was 41 famine, 1941. Some relief camps were located in our houses. People used to come from far off places, and normally they used to have food at the, even if the food was ready, they used to take it at the early part of the day, because they used to take it almost at dusk so that they can combine 2 meals. This scene come to my mind very frequently. And that's why it is a concept of food security is some sort of obsession with me. I would never like to compromise in any way with it.
Who are your favorite economists?
In fact, I must give credit to the Indian economists in that way. And during my career as minister, I have received support from large number of brilliant economists whom I rate very high. Of course, one of them is the present finance minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, and I do not know what is the reason, but somehow or other, in my entire ministerial career, somehow or other he was associated with me, either as economic advisor, chief economic advisor, then secretary economic affairs, then secretary planning commission, then governor RBI. IG Patel was another who also worked with me, and a really brilliant man. Of the younger people, Dr. Bimal Jalan, Montek, present secretary economic affairs.
What do you read when you get some spare time, or do you read at all?
I read almost every night, at least for half an hour, otherwise I cannot sleep. But then I read something light. I read both Bengali novels, fictions, sometimes some history books.
Who are your favorite Bengali novelists?
And of course, I are you talking of living one or
Who do you read
dead
most?
one?
Who do you read most?
In fact, of all the prominent Bengali novelists, I have read practically all their books, frankly speaking, and some of these books I have read 6 times, 7 times, but most favorite, not one, a few, Tarashankar, Manik, Sharat Chandra, Bankim Chandra, Sharadindu, Samoresh, Rajsekhar. Of course, he is not novelist. And then of course I read poetry, including yours, one written by you.
Oh, yes. What else do you read, apart from the literature?
Apart from literature, I read mainly biographies and history books. Of course, for my own job, I read couple of economic journals regularly.
Your wife is a singer, so I presume you are interested in music as well.
I love very much Tagore's song, and I have large number of records. But nowadays I don't get much time.
Do you listen to that?
Yeah.
What else do you listen to?
Of course, Sitar of Ravi Shankar, which is another attraction to me. But I do not see movies, or I do not go to theatre in that way.
You don't see movies even in your house?
No.
Not even Bengali movies?
And in that way I am really backdated.
Pranab Mukherjee's political career has seen many sharp ups and downs, but he has survived them all with the rare elan of a survivor. But today he's back in the Union Cabinet at a time when structural reforms are being introduced in the Indian economy, holding 2 crucial jobs, that of Union Commerce Minister and Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission. Do the jobs contradict each other? Is Pranab Mukherjee, the Commerce Minister, trying to liberalize the Indian economy in such a way that the Planning Commission becomes irrelevant? Or can planning boss Pranab Mukherjee achieve the impossible by returning planning to center stage, even as the government sheds its old interventionist image and adopts new political priorities for itself?
Is it not odd finding yourself in a government whose economic ideology seems to be just the opposite of what you propounded when you were part of Mrs. Gandhi's cabinet?
It is not odd in the sense you have noticed over the years policies have changed, particularly in the 80s when we launched 6th 5-year plan. Many of the reforms which are now being talked of were initiated.
As Minister of Commerce, you must be also finding it difficult to adhere to the earlier attitudes, the earlier ideology that this government had for exports as well as for international trade.
In fact, in our developmental strategy, trade did not contribute substantially at the initial stages because we required protection to our nascent industries, and at the same time the concept of self-reliance was to depend as much as possible on our own efforts.
Where do you see the current economic policies leading to?
Before I answer that question, I will have to point out that why we had to adopt these policies. Firstly, I do not regret the policies which we adopted at the initial stages. Some sort of protection, effective intervention of the state were absolutely called for. But with the passage of time, effectiveness of that policy got reduced.
Why?
Because the level of investment which we made in the public sectors, we did not get the return.
Did you ever expect this kind of returns that you are talking of today?
Yeah, it was, and that is the point which is not taken note of by many of the critics of the present policies. 12 objectives were set by no less a person than Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru himself in the industrial policy resolution. 6th item was the profit, and the exact language was to generate adequate surplus for further investment. And unfortunately, we completely forgot of that objective.
If there is no managing director, no chief executive of a public sector undertaking for years together, how does one expect that it would run properly? When raw materials are not obtained, when working capital is not given, and then how can one expect that the public sector will run properly?
If you have a feeling that if you make losses, there is somebody else to bail you out, it gives you a sense of complacency. You don't bother about things. So that's one great disadvantage, that where government used to cover their losses perennially. I mean, I can understand losses being covered for a year or two in order to tide over a particular crisis. But if you have an industry where you run into losses of 2,000 crores, 5,000 crores year after year, and somebody bails you out, then you have no interest in trying to see that you cut down losses.
In 1984, Government of India decided that last installment of IMF loan will not be utilized, and they communicated to that effect that 1.1 billion US dollar, which was due to India as the last installment of $5 billion extended funding facilities arrangement, will not be required. And in 1991, the same country had to pledge its gold for borrowing few $100 million, because our credit rating went so low that nobody was prepared to give you money. The point which I am trying to drive at, that situation deteriorated in such a way that it was very difficult for the government to support the public sector through budgetary route, and so long it was possible for government to borrow money from external sources or internal sources, they maintained it. But we reached a point which you may call of almost no return. We found that our technology became obsolete. Cost of manufacturing of our goods and services became costlier, and quality was also not up to the international standard. Therefore, if we want to make our goods competitive in terms of quality, in terms of price, there was need of inflow of technology, inflow of capital goods, inflow of raw materials, and that is the rationale of liberalizing the economy.
The ultimate victims will be our indigenous industries. In the name of increasing export, we are opening our doors to foreign exporters, and who will be exploiting our market here, the market here, and they are very happy to have such a big market as India.
But these are important trade-offs which you have to keep in mind. And certainly one should remember that what is taken out of the country as profits is only a small percentage of the turnover. The rest of the income of the company remains in the country itself and provides employment, provides utilization of resource. So a lot of other benefits we do remain behind.
The age of being able to sell substandard goods, or being able to sell goods of a different standard from the one that was applicable or required for exports to, say, United States of America or Western Europe, I think that's over.
Therefore, if you want to overcome your BOP crisis and bridge the gap between your export and import and to earn foreign exchange, it was thought prudent to have direct investment from abroad. It will not only bring technology, it will not only bring capital goods, but also it will ensure inflow of foreign exchange, so that to some extent you can overcome your BOP situation.
Will that happen?
I do hope. Now somebody say that why investment has not been up to the desirable level. To that my answer is that perhaps it would have been too much to expect that everybody is ready with bag of money, and whenever India will open its door and they will come and invest there. So far the world economic scenario is concerned, year 91 was extremely bad year, and according to some experts, after 1945 this was one of the worst year. So very few countries had investable resources, and those who had investable resources, they had also better grounds to invest. That is one aspect which is to be kept in view. Second aspect is also to be kept in view when we introduce these new policies. The investors would like to wait and watch and see how stable the policy is, because they would not like to invest in those areas where frequent changes of the policies are expected. Therefore, stability of the policy is also an important factor to ensure investment from abroad. So far BOP crisis is concerned, apart from expanding the export, we shall also have to ensure that particularly our dependence on imported petroleum and petroleum products are reduced to some extent.
How do you hope to do this? By raising prices?
No. What we have to do, we have to step up our investment in that sector. For the first 2 years, there may be little problem. That's why we are stepping up the investment, so that at least from the third year onwards we can get the dividend.
I'm sure you're going to have a third year in office.
Of course. Firstly because a government is in office, and unless it is ousted it will continue to be.
But given the political infighting within your party,
so far the history of Congress party is concerned, in its last 100 years you will never find that a leader has been voted out. Sometimes there has been some split in the party, as it happened in 69 or in 78, and we do not visualize any split in the party, because everybody understands that we cannot afford to have the luxury of a split at this juncture. Secondly, nobody is interested in holding election except BJP.
but the BJP is very bullish about going to the hustings.
They may be, because they find that if they miss this opportunity and if they cannot exploit the sentiments which they have created, they may miss the bus, and they should miss the bus, because the type of sentiments which they have created cannot take this country too far.
Like a true Bengali, Pranab Mukherjee loves Rabindra Sangeet, and his wife Shuvra runs a cultural group called Gitanjali, which organizes dance dramas and has also released a couple of record albums. It was this love for music and culture that sustained him during his years out of office, when Pranab Mukherjee tried his hand at building a small regional party in West Bengal but failed miserably. But then, the coterie that had manipulated his ouster was itself ousted from power, and Pranab Mukherjee returned to the Congress vindicated. Pranab Mukherjee, like Finance Minister Manmohan Singh, disproves the argument that only those succeed in politics who have a large grassroots following. His political career is based entirely on his firm understanding of economics, not on his vote bank, nor on his politicking skills. Will he ever return to his number 2 position in the cabinet? Politics is one government job where no one retires at 58. In fact, you could even say that at 58, Pranab Mukherjee has time on his side.